name is Michael Marcos Keon. I'm the Amati Ciudad of Laoag City. I was elected, I was firstly chosen to replace a vacancy in the Sangguniang Panlunsod. So I became Konsahal first, and that was in 2018. Subsequently, I ran in the 2019 election. Panalo ako, and I ran for re-election in the last election, and I won again. So this is my second term as the mayor of Laoag. Other than being the Amati Ciudad, I'm an athlete. I'm a runner. I've been running since the age of 14. Please understand, Walter, that I've been an athlete all my life. At a very young age, I started to play sport. Now, I was born in Roma. I was born in Italy. My mother was the press attaché for the Philippine Embassy in Rome, and my father was a journalist. He was the editor of the Rome Daily American, which was the largest English-speaking newspaper in the Mediterranean at the time. I left Italy at the age of 8 and went to Australia. Later on, my father worked for the United Nations for FAO, for the Food and Agricultural Organization, and I went to live with him in Thailand. And it was in Thailand at the age of 10 that I started to play sport. I played baseball. I played Little League Baseball and Pony League Baseball. The Americans were fighting the Vietnam War at that time, and there was a large American presence in Thailand, in Bangkok, and they had a baseball league, and I participated in that baseball league. So I played I played Little League and Pony League Baseball. I also captained our junior soccer team in the school that I attended. I attended the Ruam Rudi Catholic School in Bangkok. So I also began to take up the rudiments of Thai boxing around the age of 12. And no, I've been very interested in sport. And I also started to play badminton and table tennis. And then later, I went to boarding school in Australia. I went to a Christian Brothers boarding school in a town called Ballarat, which is a town 70 miles outside of Melbourne, which is the capital of the state of Victoria. So it was a Christian Brothers school, and it was a boarding school. So I was stuck in boarding school all the time, and I wanted to get out. So one of the ways you could get out is if you went for a run. So when the St. Patrick's College, which was the college that I was attending, St. Patrick's College had a lap of the lake, and out of the hundreds of students, I placed 5th. Nice. And people were surprised. And my science teacher at that time was a man called Tony Benson. Tony Benson became my coach. Tony Benson was the Australian 2,000 and 3,000 meter record holder. He was the gold medalist in the 1,500 meters in the Pan Pacific Games. He was a sub 4-minute miler, and he competed in the 1972 5,000 meters in the Olympics representing Australia. He coached me, and I subsequently became the school champion, the St. Patrick's College junior champion, and I became the Ballarat City junior champion at that time, it was yards. So it was 880 yards in 1 mile before it converted to the metric distances, to the 800 meters and 1,500 meters. So I became the 800 and 1 mile junior champion in Ballarat. I subsequently left boarding school and I went to Melbourne, and I studied in a town outside Melbourne called Hurstbridge. I became the Hurstbridge champion in the 800 and 1,500 meters. I ran in the Northern Suburbs division of the City of Melbourne, and I was the champion again. Later, I came to the Philippines. I came to the Philippines in 1975. And it was while running in UP, I actually created the second road running club buong Filipinas. The first running club was the Makati Road Runners Club. The second Road Runners Club was the UP Road Runners Club, and I was the founding president of the UP Road Runners Club. So I remember running around UP with short shorts, and the girls and the guys would all laugh at me, they'd all giggle, because they didn't see people running at that time, especially with short shorts. So it was funny, because I was really part of the blossoming of running within UP, which was a reflection of the rest of the Philippines, because running was taking off at that time, and that was in the 70s. Okay, and the PATAFA, the Philippine Track and Field Association, would have weekly relays, and some of them would be run on the UP campus. And I would compete in that, and I started to meet a lot of national athletes. And one of the persons that I got close to was a certain Irving Gallardo, who was the Batulao Marathon champion at that time. He was one of the top runners dito sa Filipinas at that time. And it was talking to the running community, talking to athletes, that I heard how disappointed athletes were with the way track and field was being run at that time by PATAFA. Imagine they have weekly relays at midday, at mga 11:30 in the morning, when it's sobrang napudot, it's really medyo mainit, and people would run barefoot. And so you'd see people with bloodied feet, you'd see people collapsing because of being, virtually having heat stroke, people complaining about the way things were run. Okay, so it was based on that, and it was based on my talking to members of the running community, that the idea began to evolve of approaching President Marcos, who, as I guess I should announce to your viewers, was my uncle. My mother is the youngest of President Marcos. So this idea evolved in the minds of all of us that I should approach President Marcos and talk to him about creating a running program that would benefit the athletes in the Philippines. So I talked to my mother, and she brought me to Malacañang. I believe this was in the Christmas party in 1978. So the president put me in touch with President Andalong, who was the president of the Philippine Olympic Committee at that time. He was the father of the actress Sandy Andalong. Okay, so I sat down with the Philippine Olympic Committee, and I crafted what eventually became the Gintong Alay program. So Gintong Alay was created through Letter of Instruction number 955 on October 31, 1979. So after that, we brought the initial group of athletes to Baguio, which was about 20 athletes. And one of those athletes was Lydia de Vega. Oh. Okay, so we brought them to Baguio, and at that time, wala pang track. Not just in Baguio, wala pang track sa Filipinas except in one place, in Marikina. Marikina had a track, and Marikina was the only synthetic track buong Filipinas at that time. So when we went to Baguio, Burnham Park, we actually began to train at PMA. So we trained there for a short time. Later we trained at Burnham Park. Eventually what we did was we built a synthetic track at Teachers Camp. And Teachers Camp became the site of the Gintong Alay program. So eventually, the president was unsure of my capacity to, he was unsure if the program would succeed. So within the first 6 months, we had a competition. So we brought the athletes to Baguio, we trained the athletes to Baguio, and by the way, I have to segue and tell you that my coach in Australia, Tony Benson, I brought him to the Philippines and he became the coach of Gintong Alay. Okay, so Tony Benson came. So I brought him in. He became the coach of Gintong Alay. He was fantastic. The first competition that the Gintong Alay athletes had, they had a competition in May 1980. It was the Gintong Alay versus UAAP. So Gintong Alay competed against a selection of UAAP athletes. Lydia de Vega ran the 400 meters. She was 16 years old. She broke the Asian Games record, the Southeast Asian Games record, and the Philippine record in the 400 meters at the age of 16. And that's when we realized that we had a world-class athlete in Lydia de Vega. Okay? Yes. And we went on, our other athletes went on to break many Philippine records. And so in 1981, the Philippines staged the Southeast Asian Games, and we ended up third, and we went from the bottom to the third. And, Gintong Alay became a household name in the Philippines, and it was even copied by our Southeast Asian neighbors. And we completely rewrote all the track and field records. So it wasn't just track, it expanded into field, and that eventually, because of the success of Gintong Alay track and field, I was actually given the responsibility to run buong Philippine sport. So the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development was put aside, and Project Gintong Alay became the training program for all Philippine sports, okay, for international competition. So I took over, and then I was subsequently elected as president of the Philippine Olympic Committee. And I became the youngest Olympic Committee president in the world at that time. I was 27 years old. We overhauled Philippine sport, okay? But especially track and field. And it wasn't just Lydia de Vega, it was also Isidro del Prado in the 400 meters. And what people have to understand is that to this day, there's still a number of records that have not been broken from our time. So we're talking more than 30 years. We're talking Isidro del Prado's flat 400 meter time, the 4x400 meter relay, the 3,000 meter steeplechase record of Hector Begeo. These records are still standing to this day. There is so much talent dito sa Filipinas. And after Gintong Alay, after the administration of President Marcos, I returned, and when my beloved cousin Sin, who is now the 17th president of the Philippine Republic, Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos, when he ran para gobernador, I supported his candidacy as a political coordinator in Dingras, and then later I created the Ilocos Norte Sports Development Council, and we were able to train so many athletes dito sa Ilocos Norte to the point that we dominated the IRAA. We dominated the Ilocos Region Athletic Association championships for a total of 11 straight years, from the year 2000 to 2010, straight. That's 11 years. And that covers my tenure as the Executive Director of the Ilocos Norte Sports Development Council, my election as Bokal in 2004, and then my election as Governor in 2007. Well, you have to understand, President Marcos was always fond of saying, mens sana incorpore mens sano, a healthy body and a healthy mind, okay? Please take it from me that when you exercise, especially when you do exercise that stimulates your cardiovascular capacity, such as swimming, such as running, such as playing a hard basketball game, okay, where you run a lot, okay, you oxygenate your system, you oxygenate your brain cells, okay. It's important to oxygenate your physical body, which includes your brain. The more oxygen to the brain, the more claro your mentality is, okay? And everyone knows that when you exercise, you release endorphins. Now, endorphins are a chemical, a feel-good chemical, and that's why there was this time that people talk about a runner's high. And I've actually experienced a runner's high, okay? And I experienced that in Ballarat when I would run around the lake, okay? If you run very hard at a certain point, endorphins are released and you feel medyo euphoric.
You're in the zone.
Yes, you get what's called a runner's high. And I've experienced that, okay? And working out, exercising, even just walking, okay, is very important because we're not just a brain, we're a body and a brain, okay? And to ensure that our soul, which is inside our body, okay, can function, and that, you know, our brain and our body and our soul, our entire manifestation on earth can function properly, you have to merge both the physical and the mental.
Hi, I'm Mira Ramirez, 17 years old from Laoag City, Ilocos Norte, and I am a sprinter of Thunder Runners Team Ilocos.
I am Kendrick Asanyon, 38 years old, from Laoag City, a dentist, a road and trail ultramarathoners.
Ako nga pala si Francis Gabriel Asada Ganela. Ako po ay 17 anyos. Nakatira po ako sa Barangay 25, Laoag City. I'm a student athlete of Thunder Runners Ilocos Norte.
Ako si Mariano Gamayo, 65 taong gulang at kasalukuyang nakatira sa Barangay 13, Bado, Ilocos Norte. Ako ay isang runner.
Hello everyone, I'm Ferdinand Marcos from Laoag City. I'm a proud member of Thunder Runners Team Ilocos.
Started running since 2015. Actually, ang nag-udyok sa akin na tumakbo ay walang iba kung hindi si Alistair Aguinaldo. naisip niya na dapat kailangan na namin tumakbo. Kasi nga, both parents namin is may mga sakit na pwede naming manahin. Kaya lang, sabi niya, kailangan na natin tumakbo, at least man lang ma-prevent natin kung may mga ganitong instances na naman.
Siyempre, ginagawa ko to para sa family ko, especially yung parents ko. Kasi ever since na nag-start akong sumali sa mga competitions ng running, palagi na nilang binibigay yung mga kailangan ko kahit mahal. Kapag may achievement ako, nagiging proud na proud sila. Kaya yun yung mas nagmo-motivate sa akin.
Nagtutulog po ako ng 9 at 4:30 po ako nagigising. Tapos kapag maraming ginagawa sa eskwela, yun po, nagre-review, minsan mga 11, tapos gising ng 4:30. Yun po, nahihirapan po kasi na-stress din po sa mga essay. Kaya yun po, stress po sa mga gawain. Kasi ang dami mong iniisip kung paano mo makakamit ang mga pangarap mo, kasi yun po, mahirap po.
Pero nakakayanan naman.
Opo, with my family support po. Yun po yung nagpapalakas po sa akin.
Ang naging achievement ko sa pagtakbo ay 6 na beses na akong naging qualifier sa Milo Marathon. Lumalakas ang aking katawan kapag ako'y tumatakbo, kaya pinipilit kong tumakbo kahit ganito na ang edad ko. Tinutuloy ko pa rin.
Sa akin, masaya na ako sa mga pangarap ng mga bata. Kasi minsan rin akong nangarap, pero alam mo yun, lack of financial yung sabi ko. Pero sa kanila, minsan nagwakwan na rin kami, nag-ambag-ambagan kung may mga mabibili dyan na kagaya ng mga sapatos nila.
Hopefully, makapasok ako dun sa finals ng Patafa weekly relays and mga upcoming events ng Pinoy Athletics.
Ang gusto ko po pina-achieve sa takbo po ay ang International Athletic Association Federation po.
Nung panahong yon, gustong-gusto kong tapusin yung 2 Grand Slam, which is sa Grand Slam sa Quezon and the Grand Slam sa Bataan Death March. So, I started training, pinaghandaan ko, sinalihan ko lahat kung paano makuha yung Grand Slam. And then, luckily, natapos ko yung Quezon na Grand Slam. Natapos ko yung isang trail ko na yung 100 km siya yung 4 lakes. If I'm not mistaken, kung iisipin ko, ang cut-off ata is 28 hours. 28 hours na nandun kayo sa bundok, umiikot, tinatapos yung race.
Sa edad ko, hindi naman ako nahihirapan tumakbo. Kaya tuloy-tuloy lang ang aking pag-insayo. Pati sa bisikleta ay halos araw-araw kong nagbibisikleta.
Oo, sa mga nakakakita sa mga thunder runners, lalo na yung mga estudyante, kahit yung mga may edad na, kung hindi naman hindi pa late na magtakbo. Yung mga estudyante, kuwan lang, kung huwag kayong maya na sumama sa mga event, ayun, para maingganyo kayo. Gusto nyo, tumama sa Thunder Runners. Wala namang babayaran. Kailangan lang, disiplina talaga yung sinasabi ko sa kanila.
Our ancestors used to run. They had to run. Our ancestors were hunters. So you either hunt or you're hunted. So our ancestors would have to run in order to kill prey, in order to be able to eat, whether you're talking about cattle or even leopards and lions and tigers or chickens or whatever at that time, okay? So people would run in order to hunt prey. People would also run because they were hunted by animals, okay? And so that's why our predecessors, our ancestors had to run in order to live, in order to survive. And this is why as a species, running is part of our DNA.
I'll get to the third question na po. No? At your age and being a very busy city mayor of Laoag, how do you schedule yung mga runs mo na?
Well, I just run on a treadmill now. I used to run here in Kalayab. When I was governor and I was living in General Luna Street, I would run at the Marcos Stadium. And then later on, when I was living in Santa Maria, I would run around Santa Maria and Talingaan. I would go for long runs along the roads. Okay, and then here, when I came here to Kalayab, I also run around. I run towards Suba, I run towards Paway, because Kalayab is just on the boundary of Paway. So I run around. Now I just run on a treadmill. I have 2 treadmills here, and I'll run a couple of times a week. I'm on the verge of creating the Laoag City Sports Development Council. As I created when I was governor the Ilocos Norte Sports, or before I was governor the Ilocos Norte Sports Development Council, I'm now creating the Laoag City Sports Development Council. I'm already preparing the ordinance. I've already reached out to the Vice Mayor and the members of the Sangguniang. By 2023 next year, the Laoag City Sports Development Council should be up and running. So there'll be money set aside, and we'll have money to be able to train our athletes, purchase equipment for our athletes, have our athletes compete in various competitions, and bring coaches here to Laoag City to train our athletes. Okay, our problem is that unlike when I was governor and before, we had the Marcos Stadium. Laoag does not have a stadium. That's why MBF, the former mayor, was planning on building a track at La Paz, near the La Paz School of Fisheries. Okay, but there's an issue with the land at the moment there. So in the future, I'm thinking of building a basic track here in Laoag for our athletes to train. I know that you'll ask me the question about the renovated Marcos Stadium that's being built now. Hopefully in the future, we'll be allowed to also use that, okay? But that will be I think basically used for Ilocos Norte. But syempre, Laoag City is part of Ilocos Norte. So hopefully we can avail of the facility there. But what I want to do is to create a small sports complex in Laoag where we can train our own Laoagueño athletes. I told you that actions speak louder than words. Okay, so that's why I'm creating the Laoag City Sports Development Council, because I'm creating the framework. I'm creating the foundation to get more of our young boys and girls involved in sport. Okay? Syempre, everyone was tied down by the pandemic. Okay? Now that the pandemic is more or less beginning to fade, though we're vaccinating everyone to make sure, Omicron is not as bad as the initial COVID viruses that hit us. People will have the time and they will have the support and they will have the direction that they need to get into sport. Okay? And that's my commitment to the young boys and girls and to our kailian dito sa Laoag, that we will help them, that we will create an atmosphere in which people will be gigil, people will be very excited to get involved in sports, because the money will be there. We need to create the revenue, but the money will be there to be able to buy equipment, because syempre all the boys and girls will want to be equipped with the best equipment for their particular sport. They need the best uniforms, they need the best equipment, they need the best venues, and they need the best competition. For all of this, you need to create a system, and that system will be within the Laoag City Sports Development Council.